right? Balance, though. This is one of those things that pisses me off, because that's one of those things that also was bringing me down a lot with StarCraft. Because I care a lot about StarCraft, you guys know that. I really care about StarCraft. I want StarCraft to succeed, I want StarCraft to do well. Because I know through its success is my success, right? So, the guys, all the other influencers, they still don't get it. They just don't get it. And they need to keep shit simple. And they don't get it. Okay? And I'm going to go over it with you guys for a moment, just to kind of show you what I'm talking about. Before we queue up for another game. It won't take long. It won't take too long. I know you guys want to watch StarCraft. Where is it? Ah, yes. Good old Womack.
Oh, right. What's up, everybody?
Womack linked it to me. Okay. So, I don't really do my own research that much in StarCraft, but when I come across certain things, it's like, it does reinforce the things I say, right? Like when someone showed that video of Hearthstone talking about how he wants the mine to change and the EMP to change and all that, and for them to get nerfed, and then a few months later, because he's on the Balance Council, that happens to Terran. Like, everything he asked for was given to him on a silver platter, basically, for balance changes. It basically shows that this is why you don't let players balance the game, because they will be biased. It's the same as if, let's pretend it wasn't a bunch of Zerg and Protoss players, and it was a bunch of Terran players instead. The Terran players would be biased toward Terran as well. You would see a bunch of nerfs and stuff for Zerg and Protoss. But unfortunately, in this day and age, with 2024, 2025, 2023, 2022, the Terrans have left, most of them, okay? And what's left is a bunch of Zerg and Protoss influencers making the changes to the game, which, because they are Zerg and Protoss influencers, you're seeing a lot of Terran nerfs. And the funny thing is, you'll see people like Cyril still winning like everything, but they still buff Zerg, and they still nerf Terran. You know what I mean? It makes no sense, the direction that they're going and the things that they're doing. And then also the nerf to the workers, specifically to kill SCVs. When I saw that Reddit post where it's like, yeah, we made the worker range like instead of like 0.01, it's now 0.02. That way you can kill SCVs building buildings. When I saw that, I think it was like 4 patches ago, I knew immediately that the balance team was biased to the point that they were always going to nerf Terran. And every time that they bring up a change for Terran that is a buff, like +5 damage to the Hellion and bigger radius liberators and all this stuff, like they said that they were going to do in the last patch, they took all of that away, but kept all the nerfs for Terran. So they took away all the buffs away from you, they teased you, and then they nerfed everything that was on there still for Terran, but then they buffed the other races with everything else. It's sad when they tease you like that, and then they giga nerf you. And it's sad when you see players that are on that balance council saying how badly they want to change something, and they get exactly what they want. That's the problem. But now there's like this coping going on that I'm noticing in StarCraft 2. And with the coping that's going on, it's basically like, well, since the game's lost a lot of its strategy, we're going to find ways to create better strategy And so this is kind of like the stuff like Pig and some of these other influencers are trying to bring up now. And I'm going to go ahead and go over that real quick with you guys, and I'm going to let you know that their mindsets are still not where it's supposed to be when it comes to strategy. Guys, I've been playing StarCraft 2 since the beginning, okay? I've been playing StarCraft, vanilla StarCraft, before Brood War came out on multiplayer. Like, literally. And when StarCraft 2 came out long ago, they didn't have a Grandmaster League. They didn't have a Masters League either. The highest league was actually Diamond. They didn't have a Masters or a Grandmasters back then. And when I first jumped into StarCraft 2, I was immediately a Diamond player. So that means I would have immediately been already a Masters player and immediately probably already been a GM. Had they had those ranks back then when Wings of Liberty first came out. So I've been designing builds for a very long time, and I'm going to be honest, I don't get enough credit out of the StarCraft community just because people just don't like me. Alright? But I can tell you I mean well for StarCraft. I mean well because it's my job, it's what I do, right? And I want the game to succeed and do well, and I want to have fun playing the game. The question is, are you having fun playing the game? A lot of people, they're just not having fun playing the game. So, what happened to it? Let me tell you what happened to it. And I'm going to show you a lot of the coping and crap that's going on. And I'm tired of it. They need these. I guess they're. And it's. I'm bringing up a video of Pig, but it's not just Pig, right? All of these influencers are coping the same way. Like, for example, if you look at Winter and some of these other guys, they're all doing the same thing, basically. And piggybacking off of, hey, we're going to bring hype, and this is how we're going to bring in viewers and stuff like that. But they're not keeping it simple. They're making it so complex. And really, it's a very simple thing as to what made the game fun in the past. So let me go ahead and find a video capture here, and I'm going to explain what that was. Alright. Window capture. Let's see here. Alright. I got to get used to XSplit here, right? Not XSplit. OBS. I'm using OBS now. But just listen to the title and what's being said here, right?
And welcome back. Well, I've been doing a lot of experiments recently to try and spice up the StarCraft 2 meta, and we were doing a show match with, who do we have? Hero and Dark, right? Best of 7, 8 worker start, really fun, I thought it would be. Ended up being decent. It was okay. Dark hero games are always fun and chaotic, but I didn't feel like either player actually leaned into the lower worker start mod. Every time there was a lull in the gameplay of this show match, and it felt like, oh, you could rush mutas, or you could divert into a really cute Immortal Sentry push or something like that, the players, basically, you could just tell they were conditioned by the 12 worker start. So what did they do? They went, take another base, build more workers. Every time there was a lull, take another base, build more workers, take another base, build more workers. It was very much the same sort of instincts that they have from modern StarCraft. You could see them applying to the 8 worker start. So
yeah, right. Name here, I know.
I didn't feel like they were as drastically different or as interesting as they...
Oh, you guys can't hear it? It's actually maxed, the volume. You guys can't hear this? Hold on.
Could have been, and I really don't think the potentiality of having less workers and rushing tech was ever utilized in that series. Funnily enough, Day9 was watching that series as well, and he came out with a really cool idea. He pointed out here in this tweet, he said, here's a cool idea for, the future of StarCraft competition. It's inspired from watching Pig's 8 worker casts. He said, how about every tournament round has different start conditions? So you have Worker count starts at a different number each game. Mineral count, different count. Gas count, a different count. He said the players just learn the constraints a minute before the match, or everything else is kept the same, but the small differences in the start conditions will force players to lean towards improvisation. Does this even sound cool at all, or am I crazy?
Okay. It sounds cool. It sounds cool, right? To the normal person, it sounds cool. But you gotta understand, like, when I heard this, and this was linked to me in my Discord, yeah, you have a different worker count, but you're not changing the balance in the game. So, is that going to promote different styles of play, different builds? Is that going to have people have different openers? Actually, no. And I'm going to explain why. Because when you buff a meta so much that you're forced to play a tier 1 style of gameplay constantly, to the point that you don't really need as many support units anymore. Well, now they basically butchered the game to the point that all spellcasters are destroyed. All support units are destroyed. They're all nerfed to hell and back. That everybody's spamming roaches and lings. Everybody's spamming stalkers and zealots. And as far as Terran goes, I can't really... So this is the thing, because I can only go off my gameplay a lot, and then what I do watch, and I'm going to be honest, I don't watch as much StarCraft 2 as I used to, because I'm not learning anything or getting anything new out of it. I used to watch a lot of GSL and stuff, or pro play, when I actually got something out of it, but I just see people do the same shit over and over again. That has gotten so boring. So it's like, hey, we're going to bring in some new strategy. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. But they're not aiming for... The problem is, like I said, it's the balance, okay? They've screwed the balance up so bad with buffing the living shit out of tier 1 units, with having absolutely no way of going into tier 2 or tier 3 units without getting destroyed by tier 1 units, as sad as that sounds. Oh, I could just spam Zerglings now, because Hellbats can't one-shot them when they're fully upgraded and all this other stuff. We can just A-move in with a bunch of tier 1. Oh, there's no Seeker Missile, there's no Splash, there's no nothing. All the splash damage is nerfed. The Disruptor is only doing 100 damage now, as an example. Parasitic Bombs don't even last that long. I think the only thing that didn't nerf was maybe Psystorm, but every other AOE in the game is nerfed. Widowmines have been nerfed. The Thor's anti-air attack's been nerfed. EMP's been nerfed. It's just, you nerf literally everything in the game that is a support and spell casting unit, and you get boring, bland-ass StarCraft is what you get. And so what they're trying to do is, all the influencers out there, they're coping with this, why don't we do something cool? You know what I mean? With different worker starts and stuff like that, because we fucked up so bad with the Balance Council. Instead of just, yeah, the fungal nerf as well, like Haven said. It's just, you gotta understand that we're having spammy craft, and I'm not into spammy craft. I don't like spammy craft. It promotes the whiners instead of the critical thinkers, because the whiners are the ones that can't critically think and adjust in the game. So what you're doing is you're essentially buffing the whiny ass players that like to do the same thing over and over again, that don't know how to really think in the game. That's essentially what you're doing, and it's becoming a mechanically based game that whoever does this better, faster, is going to win. And you're taking the strategy out. So, The title of this is Day 9's Genius Idea Brings Strategy Back to SC2. And it might not just be Day 9's idea. There might be other ideas like this that were... I heard about the different worker start earlier, like a month ago or something like that too, that other people have been bringing up in my Discord. But you got to understand, like, it doesn't matter because the balance is what it is already. You're going to get the same shit happening over and over again. And so I was curious, and I did watch this, by the way. Normally I don't. I was like, okay, I'll put it up on the side monitor as I'm watching, and I'm going to see, like, how it plays out, and I wasn't impressed, okay? And the reason I wasn't impressed is because every game practically ended the same way, which was Stalkers versus Roaches. So you just got the same thing over again. So I guess they did a little cheese. That's kind of nice. Yeah. But I'm not seeing, like, the late game potential. So here it is. Lings and Ravagers versus... just let me just put it this way. Tier 1 units versus Tier 1 units. Okay? That's what you're going to see through every game. Up, Tier 1 units. You're going to see Tier 1. You're going to see Tier 1 units again. And it's just going to be, more Tier 1 units. Here we go. Same thing again. More Tier 1 units. Tier 1 units versus Tier 1 units. Yep. Not really seeing any cool late game. So, did this idea work with the different strategy of worker start versus with the different mineral? No, of course it didn't, because it's the same balance in the game. you know sometimes you got to keep it that simple, dudes. That's why I enjoyed old school StarCraft more, because you could do cooler things, cooler strategies, because there was always a comeback potential of some kind. If you were a smart, intelligent player, you could always find a way to come back. It's kind of like in Brood War. Like, you could be behind, and then you can set up, like, the perfect storm and make a comeback, as an example. Things like that. Or maybe you're about to die as a Zerg, but then you get Dark Swarm out, right? And you make the comeback potential with good control, stuff like that. But that's that's where we are kind of lacking a little bit in StarCraft with its balance. And so what these guys need to do is own up to the mistake of constantly buffing Tier 1 by nerfing everything else. That's what they need to do, right? They need to start reverting changes, like reverting things back. And they didn't even revert the Cyclone back the way that I thought the Cyclone would be reverted back. Because technically the Cyclone, it is this Cyclone in the game, but it's technically supposed to do 40 damage to armored and 20 damage to light. But instead it does a flat 30 damage, which kind of negates the strategy of it in the late game and stuff, for certain scenarios. And it also makes it more of a pain in the ass in TVT, because it's doing less damage versus the things you really want it to do more damage to, right? So when they reverted the Cyclone to what it is now, I was actually excited, and then I was like, oh shit. They reverted it to that shitty 30 damage one that was only there for like 2 months. You know what I mean? Like it was this Cyclone that does 30 damage was only out for like 2 to 3 months before they said, we're gonna make it out of the reactor. You know what I mean? Because prior to that, they just, God, for the longest time, they never touched it. It was fine, just as is, doing the 2040. But hey, they like it being flat 30 damage versus everything, which is absolutely terrible in my opinion, because it's better versus Zerg for Zerg players, because Zerg players don't have to deal with it. Because remember, if your Cyclone's doing 30 damage, it still takes 2 hits to kill a Zergling, and it's taking way longer to kill a Roach, right? With these changes. So, and the same thing with versus Protoss, dealing with Stalkers early on. I would rather the Cyclones deal 20 damage to Zealots and Archons and stuff than 30, and do 40 damage to Stalkers. Just because everybody loves to spam Stalkers in the beginning of the game. They're basically saying, what's the point in having a Hellion? Isn't the Hellion supposed to deal with the Zerglings? Isn't the Hellion supposed to deal with the Zealots? Why can't I have my 40 damage versus the armored units? You know, that's what I don't understand. So they're kind of like taking out the strategy, because you used to mix in those units to counterbalance the units that the Cyclone was not good against. But now they made it like just flat 30 damage. Well, you could just do normal damage to everything all the time. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know why they would revert it to that Cyclone. So, these guys, they're not on the right track. Mining, appreciate your resubbing, dude. Thank you for that. So, what you're seeing is but what you are seeing is that nobody's happy with the balance, because it's weird, because it's like the pro players are happy with the balance, but the masses fucking hate it. And people like me hate it, that are strategy players. But the people who are balancing the game love it, because they're the ones that decided it. So they can't be wrong. They can never be wrong. So let's cope and find different ways to promote strategy. It's just not going to happen. I hate to say it. Whatever the balance is, it doesn't matter what you start out with, what workers, whatever. You're going to have the same scenario, the same kind of late games, regardless, because certain units are going to be better than other units because of the changes. So that's just that's what we have to take a look at, you know. Well, I love StarCraft. I don't want it to go to shit, though. But they're making it go to shit, and they won't own their mistakes. And they keep piggybacking off other crap. That's the problem.